Memorial Stadium on Mike Krzyzewski's final night coaching in this arena, and they hand the Blue Devils a loss.
This isn't part of the program. This is impromptu by me. I'm sorry about this afternoon. It's unacceptable.
Coming to you straight from the heart of Chapel Hill in the 97.9 The Hill WCHL studios from the independent voice of UNC Sports, covering everything from Amos to Zwicker. This is Inside Carolina Live. And now the hosts of Inside Carolina Live, Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell.
The trolls have begun already. WCHL 97.9 The Hill, cold open, whatever you call it. Joey Powell knows what you call that kind of stuff. Carolina looking to repeat last year's game in Cameron Indoor. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's Joey Powell, Nia Satterfield Brown, Daniel Myrick on the boards. This Inside Carolina Live for your February 4th ahead of UNC and Duke renewing a rivalry. It feels different though, Joey. It just does. It feels like the rivalry ended in April of last year. But I guess this is the new era. We'll officially say this is the new era.
They still playing over there? I thought that ended last year. I thought they shut everything down after that one guy retired or whatever. No, I kid. Yeah, man, it is a new chapter officially. You know, both schools with new coaches now after Hall of Famers, national championship winners, all that good stuff have stepped aside. Tommy, I don't know what to expect anymore. This North Carolina team, as of Wednesday night, I don't know, man. I don't know what to think of this group. You keep waiting for them to turn the corner, and yet here we are officially in February, and we're making the same mistakes you're seeing the roster make the same mistakes. We're seeing the same mistakes from a veteran roster, and you're seeing stuff that, I'm sure the coaching staff would like to have fixed. And they had so many chances Wednesday and just didn't do it again. Where do you go from there?
I mean, are we surprised, really? I mean,
I'm not, but I also, at the same point, it's like, at what point is this team just going to show up? And I'm starting to think they're not. I'm starting to think, I hate to say this, but I'm going to open the show with the hottest take. I'm starting to think that the 6 weeks to finish last year were the exception rather than the rule. I thought for a long time, and I'm not alone in saying this, and I will absolutely eat my hat if I end up being wrong. I'll eat my hat on this show. How's that?
I'd prefer you be right, just because I don't want to talk about eating anything nasty today.
But it's just they have continually done the same stuff they did last year at this time, and I'm starting to wonder, is the 6 week run at the end of last year the exception rather than the rule? And I've held off that thought for a long time, thinking they'll get it together. But as we sit here and we saw Wednesday night against a Pitt team where they had the lead, and not only had the lead, were up one with the ball, and just had an absolute awful series of execution, both offensively and defensively. And I just, at what point is that who they are?
What day is it?
Saturday, February 4th.
Okay. What in the past 3 years, because let's be honest, this group's been together 3 years. Baycott was there longer. Pete Nance wasn't part of it. Aside from that run in March,
it's the same stuff.
So you've got 36 months or thereabouts of evidence, and you've got 1 month of outlier. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, this team has been that way for too long to expect it to be any other. Now, look, they're good. Sherrell McMillan, who we'll have on the show later, also Joe Barry, and also Wes Durham.
We got a show for you.
Yeah, we got a lot of people that know a lot more about it than we do. But I'll say that nothing that I watched this team do, this collection, this team do, is surprising to me. Nothing. I think the only difference Wednesday night and in the past is that they actually had the ball up. That they were in the lead. They hadn't lost the lead already.
Right.
You know, they hadn't already.
Or they had lost it and taken it back.
Yeah. So, I mean, but they were in the lead and they managed to choke it up. And so it's not surprising to me what we're watching. The variance deal is, but at some point you are what you are.
Yeah.
You know, I heard Sherrell and Adam and Ross on the beat from the sidelines, and Sherrell and I have always talked about it. Is certain players are what they are until they show that they're not. And they were talking about Leaky Black. And everybody's like, when's Leaky Black going to do this? When's Leaky Black going to do that? The answer is he's not.
Yeah.
And the answer is that this team is what they, you know, this group, for whatever reason, has not gotten it together. And it starts with everybody on the floor. You can't say it's Caleb Love. You can't say it's R.J. Davis. Baycott has played a ton of basketball. You are trapped in the corner with timeouts. Use one.
I think he was going to before that ball got poked away. But somebody else on the floor is free to call a timeout.
Absolutely. And so it's a collective. You know, Hubert Davis has got a lot to prove, but you can't tell me they don't coach that. You can't tell me that's not the last thing you say, even the huddle is getting true. You got a timeout.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're Michigan, you say you got a timeout
when you don't have one.
You don't. But, I mean, it sort of is what it is. Now, I think today will be different. They, for some reason, get up against Duke. But we'll see.
I think the point you make a second ago about, you know, is it surprising? I think what is surprising is the fact that it hasn't changed. That's, you know, if I can give you that counterfactual, that's what's surprising to me is that, and shout out to everybody who's already in here watching us on YouTube and anybody who's listening to this on the stream. We appreciate it. There's a veteran squad out there that is loaded with talent that has been to the mountaintop. And for some reason, they just don't play well together on a regular basis. You know, and I think one of the things that made last year so special was that every night you had at least three guys that were just buckets. Whether it was a combination of Baycott, Manick, Love, Davis, three of those guys were buckets. This team has not had a game yet where three guys were solid and were strong. And I'm starting to think that you're going to have to get three at any time for this team to win. Now, one thing I think that is worrying, to your point, Tommy, about, you know, they are. Brian Ives, our guy, he's been on the show before. He's been on a couple of our podcasts. Works for the ACC Network and works for ESPN. Posted a stat the other night, and you probably know where I'm going with this, but it gobsmacked me when I saw it. This North Carolina roster is responsible. Let me rephrase that. North Carolina's had three of their worst four shooting seasons ever in the last 5 years. This core group, which again, when you look at the loss the other night against Pittsburgh, when you look at some of the other losses that they dropped this season, it's been because they can't shoot. Now, please explain to me why at your home gym, with two of North Carolina's best shooters on the coaching staff, one of whom is historically, percentage-wise, one of the best shooters in the NBA. Why is this team why don't they shoot better more consistently than they do? That's again, if they hit one more shot Wednesday night, they win. Mm-hmm. It just absolutely blows my mind that they don't make shots at a higher clip considering the personnel they have on the roster.
Let me bring this factor into it, and they're talking about it in the chat, and shout out to folks. TikTok is the devil, basically, but you can see anything you want on there. And I was scrolling the other day, and a Bob Knight clip came up, and Bob Knight has his.
Oh, you sent it to me, yeah.
But he was talking about the bench, and I would suggest folks go find it and listen to it. This team doesn't use that. There's no repercussions for bad play.
Zero.
There's no repercussions for struggles, for mental mistakes. And I hear Hubert, and we've discussed the rotations. But if you're going to play me 37 minutes, and I'm going to shoot 3 for 15,
and I'm doo-doo out there, yeah,
and I'm not good in any other way, what are we doing here? I get it if you're hurt. I get it if your fingers hurt. I get it if you're not having a good day mentally. And I'm not talking about one player in particular. But, dude, there are people, and somebody in the chat said, I'd donate my finger to R.J. Davis. There are players that would donate a finger to be able to play 37 minutes a game for a blue blood college basketball team and basically do whatever they want to do and do whatever on the floor. It is inconceivable that we're talking about the same stuff for the past 3 or 4 or even 5 years. You mentioned Ivstat. The same stuff.
Yeah.
You make the same mistake over and over and over again. There's no way you cannot tell me that it's more beneficial to have that guy out there than somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather see Jalen Washington fail and learn. I'd rather see Puff Johnson even more if he can stay healthy. Tyler Nickel, even though he has some deficiencies. Seth Trimble. I'd rather see those guys learn and fail and learn from it than learn that you can fail and there's no repercussions.
Well, then you can bring the starters back in and see if it's motivated them. Yeah. See if it's changed anything mentally. See if it's changed anything about their approach, their vibe, how they approach the game. I just said their approach twice. That's what kind of morning it's been. Just at that point, you can bring the guys back in, and just there's something to be said as well. And you can talk to any coach in America; they'll say this. There's something to be said for getting a guy a chance to just watch and see the game, because your perspective changes so much when you're not actively mentally plugged in and trying to think about what's next. It's flabbergasting. It's definitely one of the biggest head scratchers I can think of, and it doesn't make a ton of sense. All right, let's get Nia in here. What you think? Now, your microphone's working, your headphones are working. No excuse for not a solid take. Come on.
I honestly think that there needs to be offensive cohesiveness from Baycott, Love, and Davis on the floor, like you guys were saying. They need to be able to perform and be able to execute and put up points. RJ's been providing that grit and toughness, and he also needs to be able to put up points as well. He was the top free throw shooting percentage player in the ACC, but he did miss 2 the other night, so he needs to be better on that end. And then Caleb Love needs to make his shots, needs to be more consistent, kind of get out of that slump and work with Coach Lebo to fix his shot. And then Baycott needs to put up shots as well. And we also need that toughness from Nance. It's essential in this game.
Let me look at the stats, Joey, and I didn't know if you were about to go to the break, but Baycott leads the team in scoring, leads the team in rebounding. He's got a good shot at ACC Player of the Year, though I don't think it's guaranteed now. To be honest, the way the team has played. But he's got 235 shot attempts on the season. Caleb Love's got 327. RJ's got 266. Therein lies the rub, period, for this team. And I would wager that if they were doing, they break down everything. Mm-hmm. That's the interesting thing about a lot of stuff. Look at all this Pittsburgh game is they know what they're doing in every aspect, including social media. That's another story. How many of those shots that Caleb Love has taken were considered bad shots that should have gone to Armando Baycott? Those type things. I mean, Caleb Love is shooting 28.5% from 3-point range. RJ Davis, 36, and that's gone way up since that. And yet, all 5 starters are averaging 30 plus. and RJ and Caleb Love are averaging 35 and 36 apiece.
So devil's advocate a little bit. Again, this is not me caping up for the way the coaching staff has used or not used the bench. But I do think injuries have played a little bit of a role in that. I mean, if you think about it, this will be the first game tonight that they've had a full complement of players since like December. And I mean, you look at, you've had guys that have been out with, head dandruff, tight scalp, earwax buildup, excessive toe jam, ashy knees. Like, it's just been all kinds of stuff that have kept players out of games, right? So I think that has hindered who Hubert would like to grab. Now, I do think he will pull a guy off the bench based on what the game feels like. And that, to your point, Tommy, that's kind of inexcusable. But I do think injuries probably have made that a little more difficult than it needs to be for him to get in any sorts of rhythm. But I see where you're going. I think that's valid. There's no reason for these guys, if they're playing bad, there's no reason for them to not have some time over on the bench and just give the young guys a chance just to see if that shakeup makes a difference. I agree with you. I think that's definitely something that should be considered, and I think that's something why a lot of folks are scratching their heads.
Everybody has injuries. Every team has injuries. That is why it is ultimately and ultra important to get somebody other than 5 that can play. I mean, this team has 18 on the roster, and you're playing your 5, and granted, it worked last year until it didn't. If they had 1 guy off the bench, 2 guys off the bench last year, they could have maybe closed out that national championship game. And the narrative is a little bit different.
Wholly different.
But, at some point, if you're going to sacrifice wins by playing your starters so much, then why not sacrifice wins? And I fully believe that Dean Smith and Roy Williams did this. You might sacrifice a couple early games for the greater good. And that is the one thing for me, watching this team, watching the way Hubert Davis coaches. We can talk about offensive style, all that kind of stuff, whatever. But that is the biggest departure from what we're used to seeing. And the fact of the matter is you cannot expect the guy to hold up and to be physically and mentally top shelf for 40 games a year, especially when it's somebody, say, like RJ Davis, who takes a pounding in a normal game. Now, he likes to highlight it very much, with the head snaps and all that stuff. But he takes a physical beating, and you just can't do it. And we're seeing what happens when your lead guard is beaten up. Yeah. And
at some point, the coaching staff's got to help those guys out. And it starts with how they use the bench and what their rotations are.
Yep.
All right. Let's take our first break of the show. I'm telling y'all right now, we've got a good show lined up for you. I appreciate everybody who's listening and who's tuned in already. We've got Sherrell McMillan coming back next. We're going to talk to Joel Berry at the bottom of this hour. We'll start the second hour with Wes Durham. Just really, really exciting every time we talk to Wes. So I think having the voice of the ACC on a day like today when it's Duke Carolina 1 is probably going to set the tone for the day. We've got our IC Takeover segment, middle of the second hour. And that's your chance to win some goodness from Johnny T-shirt. So if you are here, stick around. I hope that tell your friends, everybody get here, enjoy the show today. It's going to be a good one. We appreciate you being here. He's Tommy Ashley. Nia's in here today. Daniel's over there on the board doing all kinds of things, pressing buttons and playing Jenga or whatnot. I'm just Joey Powell. We'll be right back on Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill.
Yo, this is Denora Cersei, Carolina alum, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live. Let's go, baby.
All About Insurance is proud to announce an exciting partnership with Cincinnati Insurance, the high-value and high-net-worth insurance company. We specialize in luxury homes and collections such as exotic cars, jewelry, fine wine, and more. Cincinnati is an A+ rated carrier with one of the best and most comprehensive homeowners insurance packages for high-net-worth individuals. Isn't it time you had the insurance that fits your exquisite lifestyle? Call All About Insurance for a consultation at 919-933-4000 or visit allaboutinsurance.com. At Omaha's Jewelers in Eastgate Crossing, you'll find unparalleled customer service. Some words from Lori Doherty, a loyal customer.
I have recommended Omaha's Jewelers to practically everybody I know. Anyone that has jewelry, whether you are looking for an engagement ring, things that need to be repaired. My husband is an antique vintage watch, and they were able to get his watch fixed. Yes, I recommend them to everyone.
Omaha's Jewelers in Eastgate Shopping Center. The name means diamonds. Let's engage. Online at omahasjewelers.com.
Phase 1 is complete with the Link Linden Apartments and Gwendolyn Office Building, and Phase 2 is underway. Redevelopment of Glen Lennox by Grubb Properties. Read about the bike and bus-friendly amenities, open green space, and new landscaping, plus retail expansion to buttress the original Glen Lennox Shopping Center. Also learn more about Grubb's new Life and Science building on East Rosemary Street. It's all in Glen Lennox Stories in the Town Square section of chapelboro.com.
Do you have old documents that need to be shredded? Dylan can help. Dylan's a young man with autism who lives right here in Chapel Hill. He really wanted to be a bigger part of the community, so friends and family helped him to create his small business. Shreddingtogo.com provides document destruction and confidentiality, all while changing the perception of people with disabilities. Call us at 919-452-7224 or visit us at shreddingtogo.com.
Tired of working from home? Need space for your team to grow? Visit the Bold Building just 10 minutes from downtown Chapel Hill and UNC. If you need an office for one person, two people, or a team space for 50, we have professional office space for you. When we think about where and how we work, times they are a-changin'. I'm Shayla with Bold Commercial Real Estate, inviting you to ditch the old way, jump on the bold way, and see how we can make your workspace the best it can be. Visit boldcre.com.
Come to the Ackland Art Museum to see Good Object, Bad Object, an exhibition of recent acquisitions of unconventional contemporary sculpture by artists such as Amalia Pica, Carl Andre, Annette Lemieux, Martin Creed, and Ronnie Horn. On view now through April 2nd. Find out more about the exhibition and related public programs at ackland.org. The Ackland is located at 101 South Columbia Street in downtown Chapel Hill. Admission to the Ackland is always free. The Ackland. Look close, think far. You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
Sorry about the things
Inside Carolina Live. Appreciate you being a part of the show this Saturday morning. Duke Carolina coming up this afternoon. Yes, they are still playing that game. Some folks, myself included, have made jokes about the rivalry being over as of last April. Well, apparently those two teams are still going to put 5 guys out and tip it up this evening. Our next guest is Sherrell McMillan. He is brought to you by Bruce and Mickey's in Hope Mills, North Carolina. Sherrell, how you living, man?
Fortunately, Bruce and Mickey's. I'm good, man.
Yeah, well, it's, do you remember the lady that worked at Bruce and Mickey's used to look like Lawrence Fishburne in the face?
Man, that's some hate
we're getting too deep
right there.
Yeah, we're getting too deep into Hope Mills.
All right, sorry. Well, Sherrell, I appreciate you being here, man. I'm glad you're being a part of the show. Look, we've talked about it already a little bit. Tommy actually used your key words, but I'm going to throw it to you and let you kind of open up your segment with it. Talk about variance with this particular UNC team.
It's surprising, just because I think it's made the rounds here lately. But the starting 5 has nearly 500 combined starts in college basketball, and understanding that integrating Pete Nance takes time, but you're at game 22 or 23 now, and so you just wonder why this particular group has never, outside of a few games here or there, been able to put it together consistently. And that's what, when we talk about variance, that's what we mean. It's like from any given game to any given stretch of games to any given half to any 4-minute stretch in a game, you could see a really good team, or you could see a team that struggles with the basic fundamentals of basketball at times. And I think that's particularly frustrating for a lot of the Carolina fan base, because when you talk about college basketball, it's always, well, experience wins in March. Experience guards win in March. We're not in March yet, but I don't think Carolina is getting the benefit of that experience fully. And that's, I think, what frustrates, because that was supposed to be kind of their superpower, where other teams might be more talented or might have more NBA guys. This team had been through everything, had seen everything, was the most experienced, starting five in Carolina history. So I think that's why the variance is so, I think Tommy's used the word maddening. I've used the word maddening, just so strange.
So I used this in the earlier part of the show as well. After the Pitt game, I've actually finally come around to believing that this team is who they are at this point, and the evolution may not be coming. Where do you fall there? Was last March the rule or the exception?
Well, I think it's the whole point. It's neither. It's just what this team does. They had good stretches in Roy Williams last season. They had some good stretches in there where you're like, wow, this team's playing some good basketball. They beat Notre Dame by 45 in the ACC tournament. They had beaten Duke the week before, so you're thinking, okay, there's some momentum starting. And then they lose the next game. I think it was Florida State. There's some calls in that game. They lose that game, and then they just get destroyed by Wisconsin, and the season's over. So I think there is no rule with this team, and that's the part that is frustrating for fans. There's not something that you can say every week or every month, like, okay, they're going to do this, and I know they're going to do this, and I know they're going to do this well. So that's where it comes from, and it's just you just along for the ride now. You just kind of have to accept that.
Yeah, they're all common denominators. We've used those words several times on the podcast as well, and so here we are. But I won't go there with you, Sherrell, right now. I do want to ask about the consistency aspect of it, and we discussed before we had you on before the break, the bench. And I referenced the old Bobby Knight clip where he talked about bench is the great motivator, just in his way, said how the bench will get folks to do it, and Hubert's just never done that. And I just, your thoughts there, simply because, as I mentioned, I feel like that's the biggest change and the biggest move away from what we've been used to following Carolina basketball, is that we don't see the 5 subs and 5 out. We don't see Blue Steel come in for a couple minutes. We don't see, maybe once or twice we've seen guys get benched for something, but it's just not the norm. I think that is a big reason why you see the inconsistency, because guys don't stay locked in. They don't stay focused for the full, 35, 40 minutes or whatever they're playing. Am I off there? Would it make a difference with this group, do you think?
Oh, this isn't directly answering the question, but I know UNC gets up 7, gets up 10, and then immediately is down 3 in a couple minutes has been kind of a theme this year. And I am starting to wonder if there's some fatigue there, because a lot of these leads have been in the second half. And so you wonder if it's a situation where, because they know they're going to play 37, 36, 38 minutes each game, they get up 6, get up 7, and maybe just for a possession or two, they don't, fight through the screen as hard, or they don't set the screen as hard. And that results in, Cummings getting 3 threes in a row. So I have wondered about that, and I don't have any evidence to back it up, but it does make me wonder, maybe they're just getting a little tired, because a lot of these leads are kind of in that middle portion of the second half. That's what it was against Pitt when they got up 6, and then all of a sudden they're down 5 at one point. But as far as the bench and everything, there's not a great answer, to be honest. I think the easy answer would be, well, we're not in practice, and Hubert Davis determines what's going to happen in games by practice. I don't think it's that simple. I think that's what you kind of hear from the basketball program, and you hear coming out of the Smith Center. But I think Hubert Davis probably is just like, I trust these 4 guys, whether or not they're playing well or playing bad, and my trust in them will show them how confident I am in them, and eventually that confidence will permeate into them. And so I'm just going to ride these guys. I think last year we thought, well, first year head coach, does he really want to rock the boat and try to establish things, or does he try to go win now? And I think this season, if you look at how the bench has been used, typically it's very specialized, and it's very, emergency driven. Like everybody's kind of like, well, why isn't Jalen Washington playing more? He played so well against Virginia. Well, he had to play against Virginia because Pete Nance was hurt and not playing, and Armando Bacot was gone after the first minute. So there was no choice because Will Shaver also was out. So literally it was just him and Justin McCoy. That's all they had to play. So I think a lot of it is bench is used for emergencies, and the bench is used for specialization. The bench is not used as a rest mechanism for starters and stuff like it was under Roy Williams. And again, that might be just how he's doing it right now. It could be that that's not his philosophy moving forward as a head coach. His philosophy could evolve. We're just in year 1.5. It's been 18 months, 20 months since he took over. So what he's doing now isn't necessarily a harbinger of exactly what he's going to do in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's Joey. Your buddy Sherrell always brings some sense.
I bring him in here because you and I can't, so we'll bring Sherrell in.
It is fascinating to listen to you, Sherrell, just sort of break it down in an easy way for folks to understand, in a calming way. Hopefully you rub off on Joey more and more going forward. But, some of the conversations we have off the air, just, man, they would really light up the message boards. Anyway, Sherrell, this matchup with Duke, for whatever reason, North Carolina's had their number. Now, Duke's a completely different team other than Jeremy Roach. I did find it funny listening to Bacot yesterday in interviews.
I hate him.
He's known him forever, and he flat out said, no, I hate him. And they were like, oh, you don't know? Nope, I hate him. And, Bacot's pretty good at the deadpan stuff. But how does Carolina match up with this batch of Blue Devils? A little bit different from last year. No, they don't have an elite guy, even though I think Flipowski is pretty daggone good. Where's Carolina favored in this matchup for you?
I think the experience is kind of the big thing. From a matchup perspective, the teams, size and strength and all that stuff, they're pretty similar. Especially if, you have Ryan Young, who I'm not sure exactly how they've been doing it. Lively started a couple games, and then Young started a couple of games. I think he's coming off the bench now. But you kind of look at the sizes and the strengths and the weaknesses, and they're not that dissimilar, honestly, the two teams. I think for UNC, for me, the key is Jeremy Roach. Filipowski's going to get hit. So let me back up a little bit if we're going into matchups. So last year, I think we talked right before the first Duke game and the second Duke game and maybe the third Duke game. And each time my answer was, well, what do you do with Banchero? And I said, you go to Brady Manick and you say, we appreciate your sacrifice. Thank you for your service. Best of luck, young man. And I think that's exactly what they have to do with Pete Nance on Filipowski, because Lively, if he plays a good amount of center, he's not a real offensive threat right now. That's not any disrespect to his game. That's just never been his strength. He's a very good defensive player when he gets minutes, I think. But that way you kind of protect Armando Bacot a little bit from having to move around and fight through screens and just cover Filipowski the entire time, which would be very easy for him to pick up a few cheap fouls. So you put Pete Nance on Filipowski, and you let Filipowski, if he scores 35, then, so be it. But you can't let Proctor and Mark Mitchell and some of these other guys, Lively, Grandison, you can't let Lakes, you can't let those guys beat you by doubling down on Filipowski and giving wide open threes. Even though Duke isn't a great shooting team, they're wide open threes. There's a lot of teams in the triangle. Maybe there's one who doesn't, but there are a lot of teams in the triangle who can hit wide open threes. So that would be my personal strategy always against Duke, is if Banchero scores 40 or Zion scores 40 or Bagley or Carter or Filipowski, great, and choke everything else off.
It sounds great. I mean, it's kind of like communism, right? Like, it sounds flawless on paper, and then when you actually go try to put it into work, it's less than. But I see your logic, man, and I think it's absolutely something that has worked for the Tar Heels in the past. I mean, you saw the way
to his credit, last year Brady Manning played some pretty good defense at times on Paulo Banchero. Obviously, the rain has been for 8 months now that Pete Nance is not Brady Manick, but they can function in the same way of helping taking some of that pressure off of Bacot and defending, a dynamic freshman who's in line for a lot of honor.
And if nothing else, you don't have to shut the guy down, but you can use your fouls. You can use your fouls judiciously, and also just keep a fresh body on him. Make him work for what he gets, and make him, tire him out. Make make John Shire go to whoever's behind him. Sherrell, last thing we'll ask you before we let you get out of here. I know you've got a big day ahead of you. We talked about the experience factor for North Carolina. In the change in college basketball, is that actually working in Duke's favor, the fact that they have guys that are just going to go out tonight and play like it's any other game because they've never been in this matchup before?
Yeah, I don't particularly buy that one because even though the stakes feel a little lower considering everything that happened last year, it's still, Carolina Duke is still the biggest regular season game that many of these guys will play. Some in their careers, some, this season. So I don't think so. I think if anything, if they get down, not dissimilar from last year, but for different reasons, but if Carolina were to break open an 8 or 9 point lead, I don't know how easy that would be for the Duke players to handle, just because the pressure would be immense considering what happened last year, considering that, irrespective of last year, both these teams need this game pretty badly. It'd be a good win for both of them. So if there's a situation where Carolina gets up 8 or 10, and they get up 10 pretty much every game in Cameron, it feels like over the last decade.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
That's going to be, I think that'll be tough for these freshmen and some of the younger players to handle mentally. Whereas if Duke gets up 8 or 9 against Carolina, I don't think it'll be mentally that big of a deal for the UNC players. Now, it might be a big of a deal, as far as like actual playing and, some of the things that they do, but mentally they won't be like, well, the game's over because we're down 9. So I still, in that respect, I still am in favor of that experience. I think that will serve UNC well.
All right. Well, y'all heard it here. Heard it from the man's mouth. We appreciate you being on the show, Sherrell. We'll talk to you tomorrow night when we record a new Coast to Coast podcast. Hopefully there's a little more positivity to talk about than there has been at certain times of the season. But either way, we appreciate what you bring to the IC team, man.
Yep. Thanks, guys. We'll be listening.
That's Sherrell McMillan, Inside Carolina basketball guru. Again, like I mentioned, you can hear Sherrell and Sean Moran join me every week on the Coast to Coast podcast. We hope you subscribe to Inside Carolina podcast. You can get that automatically in your feed. Take a quick break. We'll be right back with the ACC Network analyst, but more importantly, UNC National Champion Joe Barry. We'll talk to Joel about Carolina Duke and kind of all sorts of things around this rivalry when we get right back. You're listening to Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
I'm Shimon Williams, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live.
It's time for the Carolina Players Spotlight, presented by Hawthorne and Wood and Bluebird.
RJ Davis, point guard from White Plains, New York. My favorite part about life in Chapel Hill is walking through the pit, interacting with the fans, students on campus, and just being able to walk through that tunnel every home game.
RJ, which do you like better, lunch or dinner?
I like dinner better because it's more filling, and I'm able to go right to sleep right after. My theme song is Just Wanna Rock by Lil Uzi Vert.
I just want to rock. I just want to. The Carolina Players Spotlight is presented by Hawthorne and Wood and Bluebird, casual fine dining in East 54 and Menomont in Chapel Hill. Proud to feed our Tar Heel heroes. Find more Carolina Players Spotlights on chapelbro.com and by listening to 97.9 The Hill, your flagship station for Tar Heel sports. Go Heels!
Thank you, Bluebird and Hawthorne and Wood.
Come meet us at your neighborhood Flying Biscuit Cafe, located in University Place next to Silver Spot Cinema. We have a 25-year history of serving the South flavorful comfort food. Though we're famous for our grits and biscuits, our loyal guests throughout the Southeast come join us to enjoy breakfast, lunch, and dinner throughout the day. Bring the whole family. There's something for everyone on our extensive menu. Flying Biscuit Cafe at University Place. For more information, visit us at flyingbiscuit.com.
Hey, Tar Heel fans, are you game ready? Alumni Hall is your ultimate Tar Heel shopping experience. The best and largest selection of apparel for the whole family. Nike, Nike Golf, Champion, Columbia, plus hats, Yeti, accessories, gifts, and more. UNC students, faculty, and military receive 10% off in-store every day, and you can earn cash back with their Hall Pass rewards. Alumni Hall, located on Franklin Street or anytime at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Tar Heel fans shop.
Join us for our second annual Running with the Angels 5K Run and Walk at East Chapel Hill High School on Saturday, March 25th, benefiting the Monet Richardson Community Foundation, which provides backpacks and scholarships, helping families one youth at a time. Founded to carry on Christian Monet Richardson's legacy as a philanthropist and humanitarian, Chrissy strives to make a difference, and you can too. Participants may wear angel wings for our Running with the Angels inspiration. Visit MonetRichardsonCommunityFoundation.com to register today.
Discover new music with New Music Monday. Every Monday, 97.9 The Hill debuts a brand new song from the best of the new music available, like check out our Spotify playlist at chapelboro.com/New Music Monday to hear them anytime. New Music Monday is presented by A Better Image Printing, a high-value, low-cost provider of printed product on Garrett Road in Durham.
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
Inside Carolina Live, rolling along. Duke and Carolina play tonight. I don't know if you guys heard that or not. Despite what some networks might tell you, this is still the preeminent rivalry in the ACC, and I'm going to say in college basketball. And a guy that has played a significant amount in that rivalry and had a fair amount of success as well, including winning a national championship. The ACC Network's own Mr. Joel Berry. Joel, how you doing, man?
Doing well. I hope y'all are doing well.
Yeah, we're ready to go. I know you've got a big day, being all over the TV today on the ACC Network. Every halftime of every game, Joel Berry is going to be there with his smiling face and his lovely tie and pocket square. What color pocket square are we going with today?
Nope, I'm not a pocket square guy. I'm more of a tie shirt combo type of guy. So I'm gonna have on the Carolina blue. I gotta throw in my tie is a little bit different, but it does have a shade of Carolina blue. And then obviously I have on the Carolina blue shoes as well. So I'm in support, but also too I gotta show love to the other teams as well.
Yeah, that whole being a media member thing really does make it difficult. But Joel, I want to ask you first thing. You've seen every team in the ACC play extensively this year in your role with the network. What do you think that this Tar Heel squad needs right now to get to where they want to be?
They just need some consistency, and not only consistency with the starting lineup, but they need some consistency coming off the bench as well. Look, it's hard to be a great team when you have to rely so much on just your starters and you don't have any production coming off the bench. And I know it's February right now, and it's a tough situation because this is something we want to figure out a little bit earlier. But inconsistency has been a thing for Carolina, from play from their veteran guards to what they're going to get off the bench. I just think that has been the name of the game for them this whole year, is just being inconsistent in the way that they're shooting the ball, getting production from other players. And this is what they need moving forward to be able to be the team that wants to get back and win the national championship that they missed out on last year.
I'm talking with Joel Berry from the ACC Network, former Tar Heel national champion. Joel, one of the things I think folks will use to describe you is tough. I think Hubert Davis has said this team needs toughness. He said it after the loss against Pittsburgh the other night. A lot of folks who watched you in your career talked about your toughness. I want to ask you, can a team become tough over the course of a season? Or is that just something they either have when they tip the ball off in October or they don't have?
Look, it was something that I came in and I had that in my DNA, and that's what I prided myself on each and every game. It's something that can be taught. It's about playing, and I know it sounds cliche, but it's about playing on the front for the name on the front of the jersey. And in this game in particular, the toughness has to be there. But the one thing that I saw last game from Pitt is when R.J. Davis and Nelly Cummins got into that scramble, I was expecting Carolina to show some fight, to show that passion. That's what I not only showed it in my game, but whenever my teammates or someone did something, I was celebrating and I was saying, let's go, man. And I just didn't see that fight from them that I wanted to really see from Carolina, because that was a significant moment. Are they going to fold or are they going to fight back? And I just felt like Pitt wanted it more. This is something that Carolina will need moving forward, is that sort of toughness. It's not saying you got to go out there and throw elbows and fight, but it's a type of passion and type of grittiness that you have to show, like, hey, we're here and we're here to compete. And that's what I want to see from this Tar Heel team.
Hey Joel, it's Mia, Inside Carolina intern. I just wanted to ask you, what does the North Carolina win look like today? What's kind of the formula and the tools that North Carolina needs to kind of put together a win? What players need to step up? Is that Caleb? Is that RJ? Is it Armando Baycut? What is kind of going on with that?
Yeah, for them, it needs to. They need to establish the paint, and they need to. It's not saying that you come down every play and you give Armando the ball. Obviously that's you can't do that within the game, because everyone needs to touch the ball, because that breeds unselfishness in the team. But the way that they've been shooting it from the outside has not been good. So being able to establish the paint, get that rhythm, and those outside, those 3-point shots will come. I like when Baycott gets the ball on the paint, he maybe draw a double team or just even collapse into defense. And I believe Caleb and RJ are so great when they're getting downhill, not only making plays for themselves, but they're making plays for other people as well. Even Leaky being able to cut to the basket. I believe this is the recipe that they need to have moving forward, with the 3-point shot not being there. Last game, they were 5 for 27 from the 3-point line. Within those 27 shots, most of those, you could have found some other better shots within the paint, maybe giving it to Armando and establishing him a little bit more. And I believe his veteran presence, Armando's veteran presence, will be the key in this game, and being able to establish him in the paint against a young front court for Duke.
Yeah, on that theme of veteran presence, I mean, obviously Duke's starting lineup includes, I think, 3 or 4 freshmen. Then you have Jeremy Roach in the backcourt. Kind of what are some memories, I guess, that you have from Duke, and like kind of as North Carolina's performed well in Cameron in the past 2 visits there. So kind of what are some memories that you've experienced there, and how do you think North Carolina has that advantage coming in and already having performed well in their last visits to Cameron?
Yeah, I mean, everyone is looking at that last visit. I think a lot that still rings with a lot of people, and I believe people want to replicate that this year. You always want to get a win in Cameron. The one thing for us is the first thing is you have to control your emotions. I mean, the hype around this game is there. When you're going around campus, out to eat, whatever you're doing, social media, you're seeing it all. So emotions is number 1. 2, defensively will be something that they will need to have. You can always control that part of the game, and when you're going on the road, regardless of where you're playing, that's something that needs to travel, and that's something that you have control over. When you talk about emotions, sometimes the game will probably you'll see the game when they come out. It'll probably be ugly the first couple of minutes, and that's usually how it is. But then teams settle in and they get to flowing. So within those emotions, at the beginning of the game, you just have to come out and focus defensively, allow yourself to get your feet wet in this type of rivalry, and then go from there and get that rhythm that you need.
Joel, Tommy Ashley here, and we're talking to Joel Berry, 2017 national champion. One of my favorite North Carolina Duke pictures is where you're squared off with, I think it was Gary Trent. You know immediately. I mean, that's one of those iconic photos in this rivalry. But Hubert was asked yesterday about the environment. And he said, I don't even think about it. And if you're thinking about it, you're not ready for the game, or something to that effect. But let's be honest. It's fun to play over there. I know it's fun to cover games over there. What's it like as a player because I think it gets to a point where you can't even hear anything, so it's kind of quiet. What is your take and memory from that building in these rivalries? Because it's definitely different when Carolina comes over there.
I will have to mention my first trip over there. I was a deer in headlights, and my eyes were so wide. And playing in that type of environment, I mean, my head was shaking because the fans are going crazy. I will have to be on the contrary with that. You do focus on the environment in there, and the reason why I love it is because you feed off of it. That's like going into enemy's territory, and you go in and you walk out of there and you want to come out of there with a W. And it is so just like iconic. I can see it in my mind, just being able to go down in that small locker room. Everyone's seen the video of Coach Williams coming in there doing his little shimmy. That's what you want. I'm getting chills just talking about it, because you walk in there and just that environment is unlike any other, and you want to walk out of there with the win. Like I said, you focus on that environment because there's no way that you can avoid it. Those Cameron crazies are going crazy today, all the time, and it just what makes it so special.
Put you on the spot a little bit. What's the craziest thing you heard over there? I can tell you from a covering standpoint. It was back Joe Forte game that he went off in, but we walk out there to go find out where we're sitting on Media Row, and there's a grown man in a diaper with a gigantic pacifier and a bottle yelling at Brendan Haywood. What's your favorite memory from that aspect? I mean, it was just like surreal, and Haywood even laughed at it. But what do you remember from that as far as fans giving you grief? Because they've toned it down a lot over the years, but what do you remember?
They have toned it down. I wish they kept that same energy nowadays, because I would have loved to see that in the crowd. I just remember some like remarks. They said something about Kennedy, like, "Hey man, you look like you got hot dogs on the back of your neck." And I'm like, man, come on, just let's keep it about the game. Don't attack someone. But it was nothing to the extreme. I wish I had more, but I guess the Brendan Haywood, I mean, that tops everything. I'm gonna have to go find that picture. I might have to post that on my Twitter today.
I'll see if I can find it. It was hilarious.
Joel, I want to ask you a little bit of X's and O's questions, easy for me to say. Last year in the game at Cameron, North Carolina had a ton of success just spamming that R.J. Davis, Baycott high screen and roll action, and they kept putting Banchero in no man's land over and over again. The reason that was working was because in the event that Duke covered it up, they could reverse it, and usually the guy that was helping down on the ball would come off of a guy like Brady Manick, and Manick was absolutely on fire that night. Can North Carolina successfully run the high screen and roll type action against this Duke team without having somebody consistently hitting three-pointers?
I believe they can. Duke is very good defensively within the arc. I mean, they have the second tallest team in the country, and I believe it will be hard to find those nooks and crannies, so to speak, to be able to get the ball to Armando and be able to allow him to finish at the rim. Having a guy like Brady Manick opens it up so much, because you can only take away one option. You either take away Armando rolling to the basket, RJ coming off, being aggressive, maybe finishing at the rim, or that pull up mid range, or then you leave Brady Manick open. Carolina doesn't have a Brady Manick this year, but there are still ways to be able to expose that youth that Duke has on the pick and roll. Just being able to get the pick and roll where it's out high enough to allow RJ or Caleb to get downhill, allow them to play in some space, maybe hit Armando in the short roll, make some plays out of that. But it's just hard when when you compare it to last year's team, because Pete Nance is not shooting it at the clip that Brady Manick was shooting at. And that was a huge lift for Carolina last year, because once Brady started hitting those shots, it opened up everything else. So if Pete can knock down some threes tonight, I believe that will help them and open up the lane and allow RJ Armando to be able to operate in the mid-range.
All right, last question. We'll let you go because I know you got a ton of TV work to do today. There's always been kind of an X factor player that shows up in these games that makes all the difference, and he usually contributes, a rather meager stat line, but it comes from a place that the team usually doesn't expect. Whether that's a guy coming off the bench and giving you 8 to 10, whether that's a guy giving you 4, 5, and 5 off the just random stats that aren't expected from your starters. They're coming from somebody else. Who do you think that X factor might be today?
Well, looking at Duke, I would say their X factor, I believe, will be Ryan Young. Coming off, you already have Derek Lively with his size and his athleticism, being able to run the floor, affect shots at the rim. But you have a guy like Ryan Young that comes in, and I believe he will give that physicality against Baycott that will be able to wear him down a little bit, and especially the way that Ryan Young pursues the ball offensively for offensive rebounds, and just the way that he comes off the bench and plays with so much energy. I believe that's what Duke will need in this type of environment of a game. For Carolina, I just, the production for them hasn't been as much coming off the bench, but having a guy like Seth Trimble come in, especially defensively, being able to pressure the Duke's guards, I believe will be a huge key, especially over the past weeks with the play from Tyrese Proctor, and then Jeremy Roach has been great as well. DeMarco Dunn is another guy, too, that can bring 50-50 balls, the energy. When I think about a guy on our team, I think about Theo Pinson, who for us he didn't show up that much on the stat sheet, but just did little things that you need to be able to squeak out a win. And DeMarco Dunn is that type of player that can come in, give you some mid-range shots. If he can knock down a couple of threes, will be huge for Carolina. But those are the three players that I look at as being the X factor in this game.
Well, Joel, we appreciate you, man. You've certainly been an X factor for this show today. Good luck today on the air. We'll be watching for you. I know you got a long day ahead of you, so go rest up those pipes, and we'll hopefully be watching you in a good mood after the UNC Duke game.
Yes, sir. You will hopefully see a big smile today. I appreciate you guys having me.
All right, that's Joel Berry. I mean, how good is it to have a guy that won a national title on Carolina Duke Day? I think I would hope that our listening audience probably feels that to be a good omen. If nothing else, we're trying to set it up well.
He gets it, man.
He does.
And what he said is toughness was in my DNA. And, we've talked about coaching it and asked the new cornerbacks coach for the football team, can you coach it? And they can coach it a little bit, but you just got to have it.
You got it. You don't. Well, we're going to be right back getting you ready for this game. Hour 2 coming up next. We've got Wes Durham, the voice of the ACC. Tommy and I will chop it up with Wes, get you ready for a little ball game this evening at 6:30. You're listening to Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
This is Ryan Taylor, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live.
Hello, friends. This is Mark Pons. A clean car is a happy car. And at Chapel Hill Tire, we want you driving clean and happy. That's why we now offer expert car wash and detailing services with 4 wash and detail options that all include a hand wash, complete vacuum, wheel cleaning, and tire shine. And we offer free pickup and delivery service for car wash and detail at all 10 of our Triangle locations. Schedule your appointment at chapelhilltire.com. Drive happy and clean, Chapel Hill.
What's up? It's RJ Davis. Oya Cantina in Briar Chapel has been my go-to for Latin American food since arriving in Chapel Hill, which is why I'm excited to announce the new dish we created, RJ's Cajun Shrimp Burrito. RJ's Cajun Shrimp Burrito has the right amount of kick and is perfect for lunch or dinner. And on Tuesdays, all day long, you can get it only for $10 at both Oya Cantina and Town Hall Grill. Just tell them RJ sent you.
Get back to the big screen at the newly renovated Lumina Theater, bringing back the magic of the movies to Chapel Hill. The curtains are up, and we haven't just updated the seats and screens. We've seriously upped our concession game with soft serve ice cream, drool-worthy nachos, hot dogs with vegan options, and a variety of beverages, including excellent canned beer, wine, and cider. And of course, the latest and greatest blockbuster movies at the best prices in town. Find our current movie listings and showtimes at thelumina.com.
Hi, I'm Trevor Holman of Trevor Holman Photography, and I know how putting your best foot forward can help you get ahead. That's why I've dedicated my talents as a visual storyteller to providing quality professional headshots for individuals, businesses, and industry leaders in the Triangle. Learn how your look can put your best foot forward with my column, Best Foot Forward, at the end of each month on chapelboro.com or visit trevorholmanphoto.com to book your session with me today.
Are you looking for something a little more special than chocolate, stuffed animals, or flowers for your Valentine this year? Dedicate a song in their honor, and 97.9 The Hill WCHL will broadcast your love throughout the greater Chapel Hill, Durham community. It could sound something like this.
This next love song dedication goes out to Margaret from Lane. Lane says this song plays in my head a lot at the end of the day. Happy Valentine's Day, and see you on the porch. It's Michael Bublé with Home.
And did I mention that if you dedicate a song to your favorite person or pet, you'll be entered to win a Valentine's Day prize that includes an overnight stay at the beautiful Carolina Inn? So think of a song you'd like to hear and get on over to chapelboro.com/lovewins to submit your dedication.
Love song dedications are presented with love from Carborough Coffee Roasters and their flagship locations, Open Eye Cafe and Cafe Driotti.
Hi, it's Jones Angel, voice of the Tar Heels, and you're listening to your flagship station for Tar Heel sports, 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, Chapel Hill.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Coming to you straight from the heart of Chapel Hill in the 97.9 The Hill WCHL studios from the independent voice of UNC Sports, covering everything from Amos to Zwicker. This is Inside Carolina Live. And now the hosts of Inside Carolina Live, Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell.
Inside Carolina Live, rolling on with hour 2. Duke Carolina won this evening, Tommy, at 6:30. You know, there's a lot of things that have changed in college basketball over the last few years, specifically with the ACC. You know, we've seen some icons come and go. But I think for you and I, when we talk about what does the ACC mean to you? And when you think about the heyday of the ACC, there's a few things that still stick around that you and I see and we're like, that's it. That's the sweet spot of the ACC that we remember. And one of those is the guy we're getting ready to talk to.
Stop.
We're gonna officially call him the voice of the ACC. Because again, when he and Bonner are on a call, I feel like I'm in my warm blanket. I feel like I've got my soft shoes on and everything is right with the world.
And you're not watching Twitter, I can tell you that when you're doing a game.
Wes Durham, how you doing, man?
I'm good. It's good to be with you guys. Is this where Adam Smith and Jim Hawkins work, by the way? I'm just checking.
Yes.
they're off in the platinum plated offices down the hallway. They're not anywhere close to where Tommy and I are.
No, that's good. I wish you'd have had Twitter in your hands the other night. Oh, my God. Bonner and I just got hung out by both fan bases at one time. It was awesome. It was just unbelievable.
I don't understand that now. After listening to Reese Davis the other night, I can understand some of that. But how does Wes Durham get hung out? Dan Bonner.
Who are the people that are mad at Wes and Dan? Like, y'all need something to do.
I got to tell you, 2 years ago during the pandemic when we were doing games out of our house, one of my favorite moments was I did State Carolina, both games, but the one in Raleigh that State won in the pandemic, I had a sequence on my timeline post game where I saw I had a Carolina fan and a State fan both hammer me in a row on my timeline.
Take a picture.
I screenshot it and sent it to everybody, and they started laughing. No, the other night we had a Carolina guy the traditional "he'll never be Woody" comment came out. That was always good. Hadn't heard that one before. And I had Pitt guys telling me that I wasn't giving Pitt a fair shake on how well they were playing, and it was almost sequential in the timeline. I thought, God, I missed it by like somebody saying this is a great show. Whatever. Okay,
that's Yahtzee, ain't it?
Can be. Our business is funny. Look, if we're never going to do it 100% one way or the other for either fan base. Like when I had Clemson and Georgia Tech a couple of weeks ago, it's funny because my dad will come up and then some Georgia Tech fan will loop in and go, well, you worked 18 years here, right? So the other night when I had Clemson and
like you forgot.
Right. So some guy jumps in who's a Georgia Tech guy and gets mad at me because PJ Hall blocks Davion Smith's dunk. It's going to be this dunk. And I told PJ after the game, you were getting ready to get Jalen Johnson part 2 if Davion Smith set that dunk down. He said, don't think I wasn't thinking that when I went to block it. But I had a Georgia Tech guy hammer me. Wes is homing for Clemson because his kid's a GA. I'm like, oh my God, here we go.
I mean, that's full circle, man. Like, how do you you've come all the way around now to where not only are you in the same context, you're not Woody, but you're also now your son's also got you in a home run.
My son got involved in it. So yeah, it was, but Twitter's fun and, hopefully people we enjoy. First of all, thank you for the compliment about Dan and I. We've had a blast. They've been by just sheer luck, they've done this where they asked us to do this package together, essentially. And it's going to go till the third week in February. Dan's going to go do weekend games at CBS as part of his NCAA duty. And actually, I don't have Carolina again on my regular season schedule, but Debbie Antonelli, who we went to rival high schools together back in the day, and she and I are going to do a game for the first time in about 20 years when Saturday the 25th of February, we're going to do Virginia Tech at Duke. And we've been wanting to do a game together for a couple of years, and we're going to finally get one on February 25th. So we're pretty excited.
Let me ask you, let me jump in on Joey, because this is just for my edification. How many games do you do a year? Out of curiosity, an announcer in your role, how many do you do a year?
How many have I done, or how many am I doing this year?
Well, what's a normal year schedule for you?
Okay, well, it's funny you bring this up because my last year at Raycom and Fox, I did 36 basketball games. Okay, but my first year with ACC Network, I did 12. My second year, I did 13, and last year I did 14. And this
about one a week, right?
Maybe. And this year I'll do 30, at least 30. And part of that was because of the show and everything else. And so, I guess I understood. But needless to say, I'm thrilled to be back doing games full time for the most part with football, basketball, and then certainly still doing the Falcons. And then I'm going to do some things in the spring, probably a spring football game or two. And I'm going to do the PGA for ESPN Plus, which I did last year and I love doing. I had a blast. Golf is just, I love to play it. I love to watch it, and to be able to broadcast it for the first time was one of the coolest things I've done in a long time. So I'm excited about Oak Hill and Rochester in the PGA in May. So
you are living the dream, man.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and I'm getting older, quicker than I want to get. But it's still unbelievable to be a part of this league, in any way, shape, or form you can. I feel very fortunate about the football situation that's started to develop now with Roddy Jones and I, and even this year I got to do a couple games with Tim Hasselbeck, which was terrific. And I'm really looking forward to the future of it as it relates to being a part of it. And, I'm excited kind of at the product we've got. I think the football product is getting immeasurably better on all fronts. And I think the basketball product is getting through what, in all honesty, Joey and Tommy's a transition of power. I mean, when you think about it, Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Mike Bray now, at some point, and I don't want to be this guy, but let's be honest, Leonard Hamilton, Jim Larinaga, and Jim Boeheim are somewhere in the next 5 years probably. And I think we all have to understand that, and it needs to be noted that transition piece is going to be a part of where the next, revelation of the ACC comes from.
So what I need are you and Bonner to stick around until all those guys are gone. right? So that we have that through line of the ACC that we all love, and then what it looks like in the future, right?
Well, yeah, and it's funny because Pack and I used to get in this conversation on and off the air back in the old days of the morning show, and then Bonner and I have it every once in a while. Our best value sometimes is perspective. Our best value is our institutional knowledge of what it is. Like for me to just off the top of my head have useless information, like the last two winners of the Everett Case Award didn't make all ACC in any way, shape, or form. And there have only been 8 of them. So Michael DeVoe at Georgia Tech and Hunter Couture of Virginia Tech are non-all ACC players, and there have only been 8 of those guys in tournament history to make to won the Case Award who didn't make any edition of all ACC. So I guess stuff like that, or the fact that I remember Tate Armstrong wore 12 at Duke and was blonde hair and had a mustache and was part of the 76 Olympic team. And everybody goes, who was Tate Armstrong? And I go, well, I guess you don't know who Kenny Carr is then either, that kind of thing. So the institutional knowledge you have of the league, I think is part of the reason you're assigned to be on the network and you want to be on the network, in all honesty.
Well, that institutional knowledge is one of the reasons we wanted to have you today, because it's Duke Carolina Day, right? And you've seen more of these than you probably care to count. Just help me understand. You saw Carolina Wednesday night give up a game against Pitt that they should have won, and that's no disrespect to Pittsburgh.
Pitt's playing great, and Carolina played. If Carolina hits free throws, they win the game.
It really is that simple. So how do you look at kind of coming into a Duke Carolina game tonight that is the next chapter or the next phase of the rivalry, because now both schools are without their longtime national championship winning coaches?
Yeah, and I think, Joey, here's the thing for me. The game on the floor and the game off the floor. Okay, first of all, the game on the floor is how does Carolina Duke's gotten better defensively in the last month. That's number one. And Roach return helps there. He's the most veteran and experienced piece. But the silver lining to Roach's injury was Tyrese Proctor got a lot better handling the ball. His assist-to-turnover ratio went down. Derek Whitehead, if he plays, if he doesn't play, if he does, I don't think he'll be 100%. He's a talented guy. Mark Mitchell's their best perimeter on-ball defender. I think Ryan Young and Armando Bacot end up being a show. Because I think Ryan Young wants to tough it out with Armando Bacot. I think that Roach and R.J. Davis will be really interesting, because I think Carolina, when the big three works, Love, Bacot, Davis, they're going to be hard to beat. They're just going to be hard to beat. And I think that there have been times, and you guys know better than I do, where it's been 2 of the 3 and then some combination of Pete Nance, Leaky Black, somebody off the bench, whatever the combination was to gear it to the third slice, if you will. And that inequity has probably been why games have been close or losses. All right. R.J. Davis struggled the other night. Bacot struggled. Well, there was no way Caleb Love could have gone for 30 and Carolina might not have won the game. So I think the on-the-floor stuff's going to be interesting. Off the floor, it is the new dimension. And here's the thing I hope Carolina fans and Duke fans understand, that you still have a core program that is built on incredible history, legacy, and success. But you have people who have been reared in your respective programs now as your head coach that while they respect it, they're going to do some things differently. And I think Hubert did a terrific job of understanding that and helping Carolina last year. And I think John has also understood that with Duke and is helping Duke understand the new dimension. I'm interested to see as much of that. Look, the game delivers. Villas is right. It delivers every flipping time, whether it's 2 or 20 at the end. The game has its moments. And, I can go back to point to Gene Banks' shot Krzyzewski's first year on Gene, as Banks later said, on my senior day. To hit the shot to get it to overtime to beat Carolina in 81, and they ultimately went to Philadelphia and lost in the national title game, or to take, what happened last year. Last year is a lifetime shot now. Last year is both those games last year, but the one in Durham is I'll put Durham above New Orleans, guys. Everybody can tell me Caleb Love and all that. Sure, I get it. But if you've been going to this thing a little bit, the one at Cameron is, if you're going to start the pantheon of Carolina Duke wins for Carolina, that's the one.
That's interesting. You certainly are. If anybody knows, you do. Let me ask you this as far as that. And you're right about the game itself. And we've talked about the game here on this show, and we'll talk more about it. And I do like your point about Ryan Young. I like him. He's a good player, and I think he's a key for Duke. Mm-hmm. But as far as the rivalry itself, how did that Final Four game change things?
Well, the Final Four game changed things because, to me, it was you took the lead in the bottom of the eighth on a grand slam home run when you trailed 3 runs. Okay? And then in the ninth, you brought the Final Four game is the ninth inning, and you brought the closer in to strike out the side to win the game. Okay, so Cameron is the grand slam in the bottom of the ninth because really, with 4:30 to go in the ball game, it was 4 points. At Cameron, I think it's 4 or 6. It's 2 possessions. I know that because we go to the under 4 timeout, and Packers like, this building's nervous. And he was right. And then Carolina makes the run really in the last. The leaky black up and under is the play I remember that kind of changed. It felt like it changed the temperament of the game. So wherever that was in the context of the second half. Am I right? The reverse layup or the up and under on the baseline?
He roughly hung in the air for about 8 minutes, but yeah.
It felt like it. So to me, Tommy, that play and that sequence of that game is the grand slam home run. You load the bases. They have a closer. He throws the pitch, and somebody, if you want to say Baycott on the dunk after Love's feed, that's the grand slam home run. Okay? And then in New Orleans, the whole game is the 3 outs. And Caleb Love's shot is the fastball on the inside corner to the guy with the bat on the shoulder, and it's strike 3. Or you can make it the swing, and Mark Williams could be the swing. I don't care. But to me, I think Cameron and those 2 games, the second one, no Carolina fan wanted the second one played. They didn't want the game in New Orleans.
I'll agree with that.
I know people that wanted St. Peter's to beat Carolina before they played Duke in the Final Four. Okay, I had people going, if we lose to St. Peter's, it'll be okay because I don't want to risk what happened to Cameron. And my thought was, and again, maybe I'm far enough removed from this whole prospect and I'm not the 17, 18-year-old high school student who's a huge Carolina fan, that you still, no matter what happens, you still won the game, this ceremonial thing at Cameron. So maybe I was in context wrong, but at the same time, I think that's why the Cameron game is the bigger game. No matter what happened in New Orleans, you couldn't take Cameron away. The fact that Carolina won in New Orleans and ended it, like really ended it. Oh,
that's what. And for me, watching the fan base, watching plenty of people I know that are diehards for both teams, this game just doesn't have the hype that it's always had.
Well, because they're not ranked. I mean, it's fifth time since whenever they're not ranked. And here's the other part too. We're just basing all this like the Red Sox and Yankees now. You know how the analogy of Red Sox and Yankees always occurs with Carolina and Duke somehow? Yeah. Okay. Well, here's the thing. The Red Sox and Yankees change managers. They have free agency. I mean, hell, players go from one school to the other. We're by the way, going to do for one of those, by the way, just so you know. Down the road, we're due one of those. The old Bones McKinney started at NC State, went to war, came back, and Bones, my dad used to introduce Bones and say he took to the preaching and finished at Carolina. Unbelievable. But you're due one of those in today's college basketball now, right? Somebody starts at one place and finishes at the other. Don't shake your head. Don't do it. Because here's what's going to happen, Tommy. You're going to go, no, and it will happen.
And then we'll be talking about dudes in the locker room yelling out of the locker room after a game.
So the funny thing is that time is going to go on to eventually. I think Wes is right. Like as long, unless the asteroid hits planet Earth before then, at some point you're going to have that happen just because of odds and the way fate shakes out.
We had football players go from Georgia to Georgia Tech this year.
Also true.
We have football players go across the street now.
Yep.
I don't know why anybody thinks Justin McCoy went from Virginia to Carolina.
Curtis Staples ain't doing that.
Lord, no. I mean, Tommy, I want you to come with me now. Come on up here into the stream and all this now.
I can't see the
It's like me and Dad
Carolina.
arguing 9 to 12 in the driveway. Come on now. You're going to have to come with me.
I can't see the State Carolina, and I can't see the Carolina and
Oh,
Duke.
you can't see State Carolina? In football or basketball?
Oh, I almost saw it in football because a local kid went to State.
You guys follow recruiting, as I call it, more than I do. But I'm going to tell you this now. The portal is a strange thing.
See, now I feel like now what we need to do is find a way to like teleport Bill Walton in here to talk with us, because that's a great segue for a Walton discussion. But
okay,
Wes, I want to ask you specifically because you've seen everybody in the league this year.
Pretty much, yeah.
Between this Duke team and this Carolina team, our listeners are just wondering when the Carolina team that played last March is going to show up.
Yeah, but okay, Joey, to that point, you have to understand this is new college basketball.
Right.
And you know what? Dan and I had a very interesting conversation at his workout on Wednesday before the Pitt game with Hubert about this. Because you have to understand in today's college basketball, we don't have that carryover factor. No matter how many players come back, and in Carolina's case, 4, obviously, from the championship team, it's still a different team. And coaches say that, but now you really have to invest as a fan or, an observer of this, that they are different teams. There's context to it in the way that the outside noise has changed. And I understand what he's saying, but he also indicated, hey, look, you got to remember that the chemistry you had, and this is something I've learned in the years I've done the NFL, when no matter how many guys you bring back to a certain team in the NFL, the salary cap and other things influence the chemistry change, the locker room change, right? And that's what happens here, because you bring in a Pete Nance, you bring in, DeMarco Dunn, Dontrez Styles a year older, Tyler Nichols, Seth Trimble come in, Jalen Washington's injured and arrives in Carolina's case. Well, in Duke's case, you have Tyrese Proctor, who reclassifies, comes in. Mitchell, Whitehead, Young. I mean, Young's a grad transfer, Lively, but Mitchell, Whitehead, Lively were all this. They were the next kind of triumphant. So they come in, and John's got to figure out, well, okay, first of all, Whitehead's hurt. Lively's kind of oft injured. Mitchell, what can he really do? We think he might be able to do this. Where's Proctor? We don't want to push him if we don't have to. Roach gets hurt. So the chemistry levels change. While Carolina fans want March, they may get March eventually. But every team, to a man in this league, to your point about seeing these other teams, every coach said it takes 12 games nearly to find out what your team is, from a personality situation, from a game situation, from a chemistry context. And it gets pretty fair, and it makes that area between semesters, the fall and winter, or fall and spring rather, in most cases, really, really critical. I can point to Miami. I can point to Clemson. I can point to Pitt. I think NC State is certainly in a category of a team that has changed through injury and through the chemistry of their team. Like Mahorcic and Jack Clark are ultimately going to come back. Clark was in uniform the other night against Florida State. But it's DJ Burns and the 2 guards now for NC State. That's not what it was when they played early in the year and smoked Dayton. So I think every team's like that, and I think Carolina gets to it, but it's going to get there in a different route, I believe, now every year in college basketball.
So what do you think they have to do to get there? I guess would be the next question. After, again, seeing Wednesday night and then whenever the other times you've been able to see them this season, what are they going to have to do to get there? Well, is it just more guys scoring? What is it?
I think that's part of it. I think the other thing is every night they've got to be the tougher team. Carolina's got to be a tougher team. And defensively, and I'm not breaking news here, certainly not to you guys, Carolina has not been consistent on defense. I'm not sure yet.
No, that's correct.
Okay. But if you're going to be good on defense, then be the tougher team too. And I thought the other night that there was that kind of lost mystery look on the double team against Baycott when they got to the offensive end at times. Armando's hesitation and the movement around him when the double team showed. And I thought Pitt was well schemed and well scouted on the double team because it shook Carolina in the early possession. The other thing about this too is this team and again, I'm not breaking news to y'all. This team doesn't share the basketball in an assist to basket ratio like other Carolina teams have. Mm-hmm. And the number of threes in relation to and a strategic point of Carolina is they've got to get to the free throw line. That's a value piece for them. Now, maybe against NC State, who fouls a lot, it creates, a political overstorm. But for me, one of Carolina's strengths is getting to the free throw line. Now, to Tommy's point, assuming they hit the free throws, which they didn't the other night, but I think you've got teams that have certain characteristics 20 games in that's how they're going to win and be successful. I mean, I look at Miami. I think it's more than just Nigel Pack. I think O'Meara has to play well for Miami to be successful. I think, Jordan Miller is one of the more underrated players in the league who plays at Miami. Clemson has to have Chase Hunter Tyson, and P.J. Hall play to be effective. They've got a big three as well. And you know what Clemson is? Old and tough, and they guard you. They muddy it up a little bit. So I think everybody's got that trait. But for Carolina, defensive consistency and watch the turnover number. I think your assist number, the NC State game one time, I think we were looking at the numbers during a commercial break. Carolina had 13 makes and 4 assists.
No.
Come on now.
That's been the norm, too. Yeah, that's been the norm this year.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and that's a surprising development, Tommy, for me. I thought with Davis and Love, they would be a much better passing team. That just has not materialized.
Yeah, passing point guards are different. And Love, we can talk about them forever, and we've spent many an airwave on R.J. Davis and Caleb Love. Let me ask you from a league standpoint, and obviously Duke Carolina here later today, and we're talking to Wes Durham, legendary Wes Durham. What is blow some smoke?
Yeah.
From a league standpoint, everybody says the league is bad or down, and if you look at all these numbers, which I'm not a huge number guy, it is down. From your historical perspective, what has happened for that to be the case?
I think there's some similar traits to football. I think that, when Miami came in this league and Virginia Tech came in this league and we had Florida State already in the league, we all had this, we created divisions for essentially Miami and Florida State to play championship games, and it never happened, right? Mm-hmm. I'm kind of the belief that I think the transition of power, and that's what I call Coach Williams and Coach K and ultimately Mike Bray now, who's on that list. And when you stay 20 some odd years someplace, you're making an impact in the program, right? Yeah. And Notre Dame won an ACC title. Mike Bray's a real deal. Boeheim, Hamilton, Larinaga at some point, that's 6 coaches, right? Of 15 schools that are ultimately going to retire potentially in a 10-year window. Okay. So that's a transition of power and how those schools handle those hires and the guys you have. Look, Tony Bennett is a rock star in this industry. Mm-hmm. I think that Steve Forbes is a perfect fit at Wake Forest. I think Earl Grant, perfect fit at Boston College. I think Heather Lake's patience at Pitt has paid off for Jeff Capel. Kenny Payne, look, Louisville has bottomed out. And Louisville can't go anywhere but up after this year. Now, will they? I think so. I think Kenny's got a pretty good grasp of what it is. I love Mike Young at Virginia Tech, and there are 4 others, and Joey's probably heard me say this somewhere. There are 4 other schools in the country in the Southeast that see Mike Young win the ACC title at Virginia Tech and walk around going, I have passed on that guy more than once. Mm-hmm. And I can name all 4 of them, but I won't on this show. But I think you have to realize what you do have as commodities are really good coaches. Still, even with Hall of Famers who may move on in retirement, you still got really good coaches and you got incredible traditions. And I think the other part about this that's getting lost is we start the weekend with 7 teams within 2 games. Mm-hmm. 7. The Big 12 is a really good league. Now, is it the end-all, be-all 8th day of the week, go from twisting the dials to cable? They're not that good, but they're good. The Big Ten is overhyped. I think the SEC is good in spots. I really like Tennessee. I think Auburn is okay. I think Arkansas is okay. I like Alabama. I really like Tennessee and Alabama, to be honest with you. But everybody else has one or two. The ACC has one or two. Nobody's got a league except the Big 12 that has this standard bearer. So the ACC is not as bad as some of the national guys want you to believe. The problem is there's not that guy or that team to latch on nationally. Tony Bennett's got an unbelievable program. He'll beat a lot of people. But guess what? They don't have names you know.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Bennett does not have a top 100 guy on his, McDonald's All-America, a guy who was going to bring the 8th day of the week in cable television with him to Charlottesville. He doesn't have Zion with him. He doesn't have Harrison Barnes on his team. He's got a really good basketball team. I think that's part of the ACC fatigue. And now the coaches are moving on. Roy moves on. Kay moves on. Next thing you know, that league's going through this and going through that. Is it? I'm not sure about that. It's, and the other part about it is that you've got schools that have got to make sure that their scheduling is tightened up too. We got to play better games. We got to do it in football. We got to do it in basketball. Yes, the revenue is important, but we've also got to do it for the competitive side of where we're going. And the metrics that we're into now, Tommy, I don't know what in the hell the net is. I mean,
and that's a thing I use to land a largemouth when I'm fishing at
and here's the other part too. I wouldn't worry about the net except the NCAA chose to endorse it and put their name on it.
Yep.
And so that's a problem to me as well. But the ACC right now is it's a better league than people think. And you know what? If the story of last March is repeated this year, that's the part for me. I'm a little disappointed in my national colleagues who've forgotten last March.
3 in the final 8, Wes.
Could be again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That'll be something to watch. And as always, Tommy, I mean, you and I, Tommy, are not actually turning the dials. They're going from dials to cable. But I'll tell you right now, I know a lot of folks that are turning on cable or satellite or streaming to hear Wes Durham call a game. And I know my co-host and I will absolutely are two of those guys. But
thank you.
We appreciate it, man. Can't wait till the day that, again, has to be more than 10 years down the road when you decide to go play golf full time and get into the ACC Hall of Fame. But we're thankful for you making time for us on a Saturday morning.
Hey, anytime, guys. Thank you very much. It's always good to catch up and love what you guys do for Carolina. And Adam Smith, he's got enough Elon in him. I'll talk to him occasionally.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, guys. Be well.
That's Wes Durham. And we appreciate Wes making a part of the show this morning. That's 2 Adam Smith mentions when Adam's not on the show. So Adam's got some fans out there. We'll be right back for the IC Takeover segment. Get your questions in here on Twitter or on the message boards. You're listening to Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
Hey, it's Trey Boston, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live.
I'm Hank Hill, and I sell propane and propane accessories. I think I've done pretty well.
Talking about that dang old 401k, man.
And that's Boomhauer. I used to get my financial advice from him.
Been talking about that dang old Bitcoin and penny stocks, man.
Dang it, Boomhauer, that was terrible advice. Thankfully, John Stillman at Rosewood Wealth Management helped me fix my mess. If he weren't my friend, I'd hug him.
Dang old Hank and I ain't real, man, but Carolina Wealth Stewart is doing business at dang old Rosewood Wealth Management as a real registered investment advisor in the state of North Carolina, man.
First Watch Daytime Cafe is the preferred breakfast, brunch, and lunch go-to place for all Tar Heels, owned by Tar Heels. Open 7 days a week from 7 to 2:30. First Watch also has fast and convenient takeout. Download the app from the Apple or Google Play stores to order. Check on your order or reserve a spot in line on the weekends. From griddle to grill, sandwiches and salads, power bowls and juice bar, First Watch will feed you with Carolina hospitality and service. Check out the full menu on firstwatch.com.
Lace up your running shoes and join us for the second annual YMCA Leprechaun Dash on March 11th. This 5K and 10K run travels through the new Chatham Park subdivision and finishes in downtown Pittsburgh. It's a great way to spend time with family, make new friends, and win prizes. Enjoy a post-race party in Pittsburgh. Best of all, the proceeds support local kids through the YMCA After School and Camp Scholarships. The race is part of Chatham YMCA's annual campaign. Visit ymcatriangle.org and choose Chatham YMCA to register. We look forward to seeing you there.
Why choose Hendrick? Your car is an investment. Don't put your investment at risk by taking it to just any mechanic. Hendrick Acura South Point's technicians have been comprehensively trained in maintaining and repairing all Acura models. Their service center has the latest diagnostic tools and technology, and they only use genuine Acura parts. Hendrick Acura South Point. See the job done right the first time at the right price. Head to AcuraSouthPoint.com or call 984-287-5500 today.
Emerge Pediatric Therapy wants to take a minute for moms and dads. At Emerge Pediatric Therapy, their mission is to enhance the lives of the children they serve and the families who love them by providing a fun, nurturing, and supportive therapeutic environment.
When a child is struggling, the typical response is to put extra focus and attention on that area of weakness. At Emerge Pediatric Therapy, we believe in a strengths-based approach that respects a child's neurodiversity. Rather than asking them to do something hard and unmotivating for an arbitrary reward, therapy sessions at Emerge are play-based with activities that are both motivating and meaningful to your child. This approach allows us to celebrate and build upon strengths that your child has in order to improve their weaknesses and overall function.
Take a Minute for Moms and Dads has been made possible by Emerge Pediatric Therapy, creating confident kids through customized therapy with offices in Scarborough, Durham, and Cary. Online at emergepediatrictherapy.com.
Ow!
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy, Ashley, and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
I'm back! Get up off of that thing! And stand
Tommy, Ashley, get up off of that thing.
How many James Brown songs will we hear starting in summer of 2024?
Well, if you heard the emergency edition of the Coast to Coast podcast when James Brown committed to Hubert Davis and the Tar Heels, I tried to work every James Brown reference I could into the intro to that show.
How did you? How long did it take you to get that?
The first 3 or 4 sentences came pretty easily, but kind of tying them all into one good soliloquy was a little difficult.
I can imagine that'll be the go-to starting, I guess, June 2nd, 2024. When the James Brown arrives at Carolina.
Yes, sir. You know what else is a good go-to is Johnny T-shirt.
Nice.
Johnny T-shirt right there on Franklin Street. If you're in town and heading over to Cameron today, or if you're in town just to watch the game on Franklin, go to Johnny T-shirt for the love of all things sacred. They have got the gear that you need. They have got all of the gear that you need. Hoodies, long sleeve T-shirts, quarter zips, coats, hats, non-hats, socks, belts, bags.
They still sell sunglasses?
I know, because you got a pair of sunglasses there in 1947 on your first trip to town. But go to Johnny T-shirt, please. If you are an Inside Carolina premium subscriber, you get that extra 10%. And why am I talking about Johnny T-shirt right now? Because it is the IC Takeover segment. And Miss Nia Satterfield Brown is here to hit us up with some questions from you, the listener. And the winner will get a $50 gift card to Johnny T-shirt. Nia, take it away, please, ma'am.
Yeah, first question coming in from a user UNC, spelled UNCSEA.
That's a good boat name.
Yeah.
I hope that somebody has a boat name. That's a great name for a boat.
Right, I would hope so. First question is, why doesn't Hubert kind of use more offensive and defensive substitutions and switches during late game situations that will potentially lead to a win?
Tommy, I'm going to go ahead and take that because it's not as if Hubert and his staff do not want to win. I think whatever's happening in practice is not, for whatever reason, translating to game time, specifically in situation-based times of the game. I just don't think that's his MO. I mean, every coach is different. And yes, he played for Dean Smith and, you know, he coached with Roy Williams. There's going to be that through line, but he's not going to be the same guy, and he's going to want to do things the way he wants to do them. I do think he plays guys based on the flow of the game. I don't think he goes offense for defense as much as you may have seen other coaches do. And that's not something that happens all over college basketball as much as it used to. But Tommy, I just think that's a coaching feel thing. You know, maybe he breaks out in some instances. We haven't seen it in 2 years, but it's, you know, who knows? Maybe he goes that way at some point if he feels it.
Yeah, I mean, if he was going to ever do it, that would have been a good time to do it the other night, right, against Pitt, because you want Leakey on Burton, and then they just run a simple screen to get the smallest guy on the court versus their.
The frustrating thing is they had, like, I'm assuming North Carolina staff knew that Pitt was going to try to get Leakey off of Burton.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, Carolina let it happen.
But that's another whole discussion. I mean, you go under the screen there, you stay on Burton. If he shoots a three there, fine. You got plenty. Anyway, don't get me started on that stuff.
No, stay here. I'm curious. Like, I think everybody watching that knew that Burton was going to get the ball, and you knew that they're going to try to run some action to get Leakey off of him. And I can't remember if it was one high screen or two, but they succeeded. And all of a sudden, you've got RJ in no man's land, and I'm not mad at the foul there.
No. I mean,
but
he had no shot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at the foul, but the problem was the execution in either Leakey fighting over or under the screen to stay on Burton. And I'm with you. I think you go under and give him your 3-pointer. And I know this is all Monday morning quarterbacking or whatever, but I don't see why North Carolina didn't either say stay home on everything, or maybe it goes back to just its execution, and it was not executed the way the staff was hoping for.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you put Trimble in there. Maybe you put Dontrez Styles in there for RJ. I don't know. He's done some switching in the past, situation based in late games. Not a lot, though. Not like a lot of teams do. But when you're satisfied with your starters for the most part, and you don't really have a regular bench rotation, you ride with what's gotten you there. And we could Monday morning quarterback, or we'll say Saturday night point guard if we're talking about this after this game. But it's one of those situations where, to Sherrell's point, 20 months in, there's a lot of evolution to happen. It'll be interesting to see if that's one of them. But yeah, that in-game situation, you can see that coming from a mile away. And you would think that if we could see it coming from a mile away, that something could have been done to stop it. And ding. Yeah. What's next?
Next question. Obviously, North Carolina is returning to Cameron Indoor for the first time since spoiling Coach K's retirement party. So the next question is, which coach is under the most pressure to win this game? Is it Coach John, first-year head coach at Duke? Obviously, he's played at Duke and been the assistant coach and ran up the ranks. This is his first year kind of with a new squad, relatively new squad as well. And we have Hubert Davis returning, coming back from 2 back-to-back wins in Cameron Indoor. So which coach is kind of under the most pressure to win this matchup tonight?
I'll start that one. I think that's easy. It's John Shire. I mean, Hubert Davis, just on those 2 wins alone, built up so much capital in this rivalry.
For this matchup, you're right.
Now, how the season's played out makes this game. If Carolina were 17-3, 8-2 in the conference, and cruising, then it would absolutely be on Shire. But given, it's a big game for both teams. But I think John Shire, he's got to figure out how to get off on a good start. Granted, Hubert didn't start good against Duke, and people forget that.
Also true.
That game was over at the 16-minute timeout, media timeout, in the Smith Center last year. So, but I think the pressure is squarely on Duke, and I think for Duke's sake, what benefits them a little bit is, other than Jeremy Roach, none of those guys were a part of it last year.
I don't think either coach is under a ton of pressure. I think if you're asking me which one probably needs it more, I'd say Shire does, but you can't sit here and tell me that North Carolina doesn't need a win at all. Like, North Carolina just needs a win, period. It just happens to be that they're playing Duke tonight. I don't think either one is necessarily under any sort of stress or whatever. This type of stuff happens when you replace Hall of Fame coaches. But I do think North Carolina absolutely needs its win tonight, or then all of a sudden you're thinking about, alternative plans to March.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope you like boba bubbles.
Gross.
You need to lose these.
Gross.
Oh
No, the mango. Now I'm getting hungry and thirsty. What's next, Nia?
The next question coming from Sean Crowley. Can this team kind of find 2 guys off the bench tonight to provide quality production and minutes?
Puff.
Can he do it being as sore as he is?
Yeah, he hasn't had a game since since before NC State.
Yeah,
missing 3 games.
I mean, that's pretty much been his MO, right? Play a couple, miss a couple.
He's likely probably never going to be fully healthy.
One thing that he does, and we'll see if he does or not, he's going to play hard.
That's true.
And he brings energy, and that's part of the reason why he stays hurt. Because he's injury prone, as we've seen anyway, but he busts his rear end when he's out there. And so I think Puff's got to be the guy. Somebody else off the bench in this game, I don't really see it.
This could be a nickel game. They're going to get some open 3-pointers because, like we were talking about earlier with Joel Berry, this Duke team defends the paint very well. North Carolina does not. But on offense, that should open up for some 3-pointers for North Carolina. I could see Tyler Nickel hitting 1 or 2 if he gets the minutes. I also think that one of the values, and I love that you led with Puff Johnson, I think one of Puff's kind of unappreciated attributes is he's not afraid to shoot. North Carolina's got some guys on offense right now that look like they're afraid to shoot when they get an open shot.
Yeah, Trimble's not shooting.
Right, and that hurts you. If you're playing 4-on-5 at any time against a talented opponent, that's not going to work in your favor. And if you think about North Carolina last year when they were at their worst, it was when they were essentially playing 4-on-5 with Leaky Black. They don't have to score. All 5 players don't have to score, but they have to be a threat to score. And you can't be a threat to score if you don't shoot.
Yep. Nickel still concerns me a little bit on the defensive end.
Sure.
Now, this game, maybe not as much, but he's gotten exposed a little bit. He's gotten better.
I think his length will help him tonight.
Yeah, and to Barry's point as well, and I'm glad he was straight up about it because I find Hubert's response to be a little ridiculous. That environment matters.
Yeah.
And to our point, talking off the air, you saw the Carolina Duke women game over there. They are right on top of you. And, it is different when you've never experienced before. And
You
I
ain't
don't
getting
care
that at the KFC, Yum, Taco Bell, whatever center in Louisville. Like, you don't have that anywhere else.
And it's like if I throw a pass down the sidelines, man, they might be in the way.
Or you're thinking about it them being in the way.
Exactly. And, I've been down there. I've been on press row. And I know how close they are. And I know how loud it is. And it's just different. And I think we'll see how the freshmen go into this, but I think if anybody other than the starters are big in this game, I think it's got to be Puff.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think we can see some minutes from Jalen Washington as well. I mean, like Joel Berry was saying, they have the height for this, or what Sherrell was saying, excuse me. Duke has the second ranked height for in the NCAA. So I think that we can see from Jalen Washington, possibly on Filipowski or Derek Lively. And I also think we see DeMarco Dunn contributing to that three guard lineup with RJ and potentially Caleb.
Yeah, I freely admit I forgot about DeMarco Dunn. So I would say Puff and DeMarco, but talking about
Pitt didn't forget about him Wednesday night.
Yeah, that was interesting. But, I think, and we can talk about this from now until 12 o'clock. We can talk about this from now until 6 o'clock. Armando Bacot's got to stay on the floor. He cannot pick up the dumb, stupid fouls that he continues to get 30 feet from the basket.
Yeah.
If they want to, I will never understand the need to run Armando in ball screens at the top on offense. I'm not talking about defensively. But he has picked up so many fouls that way. And Jay Billis, a Dookie, but he says something that I've always said and repeated over and over. You can get a bucket back. You cannot get a foul back. Mm-hmm. And that'll be key in this game. If Jalen Washington has to play major minutes, and I said has to for a reason, then Carolina's in trouble.
Well, especially with Duke's size.
Yeah. And I mean, you got Lively. He's not a massive post presence, but I do think Young is good. Interesting that Young is a Northwest transfer.
Isn't that crazy?
Northwestern. He would look awfully good at North Carolina, I think. But Filipowski is their game, or Filipowski, and Carolina combat the size by having the guards hit shots. So
it's really that simple, I think, Tommy. It's making shots.
And Bacot on the floor. and them making some outside shots, I think Carolina wins the game.
Yep.
All right. Well, Nia, I will allow you to figure out who our winner is, and we'll contact them during the break. But shout out for everybody who got questions in for that segment. We'll take our last break of the day. We'll come back and wrap the show for you. Appreciate you being a part of Inside Carolina Live today. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt for sponsoring as always. They are such loyal sponsors of Inside Carolina content, and we love them. Hope you will love them as well. Take one last break here on Inside Carolina Live. Duke, Carolina today, 6:30 on ESPN. But you already knew that. It's 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
I'm Ryan Switzer, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live.
It's time for the Carolina Players Spotlight, presented by the Lumina Theater, supporting the student athletes from your hometown team on your hometown radio station.
Leaky Black, small forward from Concord, North Carolina, UNC men's basketball. My favorite part about life in Chapel Hill, I love it here. I love the people, the places. I love going to the movies. I love the food. You have to try the Lockdown Leaky Chicken Tenders. Creed's my favorite movie because Michael B. Jordan just keeps getting back up every time he gets knocked down. My favorite song right now is probably Top Sound by NBA Youngboy.
The Carolina Players Spotlight is presented by the Lumina Theater in Southern Village. Come visit the Lumina, Chapel Hill's neighborhood theater. Movies are just better there. Find more Carolina Players Spotlights on the homepage of chapelboro.com and by listening to 97.9 The Hill, your flagship station for Tar Heel sports. Go Heels!
Thank you, Lumina Theater. Are you looking for something a little more special than chocolate, stuffed animals, or flowers for your Valentine this year? Dedicate a song in their honor, and 97.9 The Hill WCHL will broadcast your love throughout the greater Chapel Hill, Durham community. It could sound something like this.
This next love song dedication goes out to Margaret from Lane. Lane says, this song plays in my head a lot at the end of the day. Happy Valentine's Day, and see you on the porch. It's Michael Bublé with Home.
And did I mention that if you dedicate a song to your favorite person or pet, you'll be entered to win a Valentine's Day prize package that includes an overnight stay at the beautiful Carolina Inn? So think of a song you'd like to hear and get on over to chapelboro.com/lovewins to submit your dedication.
Love song dedications are presented with love from Wentworth and Sloan Jewelers in University Place and NC Farm Bureau Master Agent Robbie Norris.
When I think of a hero, I imagine our first responders and of their passion for protecting the innocent. Here at Farm Bureau Insurance, many of my fellow agents share the same passion about protecting their customers and communities. I wouldn't call myself a hero, but I am here to serve Chapel Hill. I'm Robbie Norris. Call me at 910-840-0833 for a quick auto, home, or life insurance quote, and to learn more about how Farm Bureau Insurance can save you time and money.
I'm Don Rice from your locally owned and operated Molly Maid. As we celebrate 25 years in our community, we would like to highlight the work of the Compass Center for Women and Families. They focus on helping people that are experiencing domestic abuse attain self-sufficiency, safety, and health. We at Molly Maid have been supporting their mission for more than 24 years and invite you to learn more or donate at compassctr.org. Thank you, WCHL, for caring about our community.
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live with Tommy Ashley and Joey Powell on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports.
Inside Carolina Live. Daniel's hiding it down quick today. He wants me to hurry up and get us into the segment and get out. That's fair enough. We've gotten through the whole show. I can see where you're going there. Tar Heels at Cameron tonight. Duke is favored by 3. I think a lot of folks were expecting otherwise. I know Taylor Biffle said the other night when he did the postgame with you, Tommy, he thought Carolina would be favored, but that makes the most sense from a inducing betting action standpoint. But Duke favored by 3. Total set at 144.5. If you're into such things, 6:30 on ESPN. Tommy, I'm going to use your old line here. North Carolina will be successful tonight in Durham if blank.
Armando Bacot plays 38 minutes.
Whew.
He's going to play it.
I mean,
if he's not on the bench in foul trouble, he's going to play that many. And I think they're successful if he is. I mean, Baycott is a bucket when he's on the floor, when he's active. I'll add one more. Baycott's shot total is more than the average of Love and R.J. Davis's. How about that?
What do you mean the average of 11 R.J. Davis's?
So say
their average shot total for the season?
No. In this game, R.J. shoots 15 times. Caleb Love shoots 15 times. That's 30. That's an average of 15. Baycott has more than that.
And he's more than 15 attempts. Okay.
Or more than whatever they. Because if both guards outshoot Baycott in this game, I think Carolina's it's not going to end well.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, too, is a lot of times if you're hitting threes, you don't have to take a lot of threes. See what I'm saying? Like that's a lot of times, especially the other night, North Carolina was taking 3-pointers because they weren't able to get the ball to Baycott in the positions that he wants or the positions where he can be successful. I did see some positive. There was one time in the second half where he reposted to get a feed from RJ, and RJ went right back to him. And that's the type of things that you expect to see from a veteran team like this. I'm just not real sure that North Carolina can have a good shooting night in that gym. I think, your statement about Armando's minutes, I think is absolutely 100% accurate. I think North Carolina's got to shoot, 45 to 50% from the field tonight to win this game. I don't see a way that they can't. Duke defends well. Duke probably isn't as prolific of a scoring team, but one of the things that usually is an advantage for North Carolina is rebounding. Well, Duke's just as good of a rebounder, and it's actually better on the offensive glass than North Carolina is. So North Carolina's got to make shots tonight, specifically coming off that match against Pittsburgh where they seemingly couldn't throw it in the ocean. I posted on Twitter during that game, Pete Nance hit his first 3-point attempt early in the game. Nobody after that, not named Caleb Love, made a 3-pointer in that game. That can't happen tonight, and you expect to win in Cameron, period. So North Carolina's got to shoot the ball well tonight. They need to be better from the free throw line. Getting to the line has become such a part of their identity. You've got to make other teams pay when you're running your offense through the paint and getting them to foul. It's a wasted trip if you get that foul call and actually don't do anything at the free throw stripe. So what it was 11 of 20 the other night, 55%. You got to be better than that. So tonight, my keys, you got to shoot above 55% or 45% from the floor. You've got to make some jump shots to make Duke guard. And then you got to hit free throws. I know that sounds like a lot, but it shouldn't be for a team that is as talented as North Carolina is.
Yeah. My take, RJ, Armando, Caleb all need to play together. They have not played a cohesive game this season, and in order for North Carolina to win, they need to score upwards of 20 points, and Armando needs to obviously dominate on the boards once again. But those three are the core, and them playing together is key.
What was the how many? And I don't have it in front of me, but last year in Cameron, what did the four of those guys, Manic included, have? Didn't they have close to 80?
They had almost 80 between them. I think Leakey ended up with 6 or 7 points. But yeah, those guys almost won the game by themselves. Yeah. And that's not saying that the rest of that has to come from one single player. I think Nia's point is a salient one. You can get it from 3 guys and still win, but you've got to have that makeup enough where those 3 are carrying the mantle for you and carrying most of the load. I just don't see a way that if it's 2 of those 3 that they can make it work.
You know, an interesting stat we hadn't really talked about and I just found.
Well, you got 40 seconds to do it.
Turnover percentage. Carolina's 18th in the country. Duke is 161. Carolina's run some press this year, and they've been able to create some issues for opponents by playing some full court defense, playing some press stuff. I know RJ likes to pick up full court, but force Duke to do anything but come down and just get into their stuff.
That would be interesting to see. But shout out to Sherrell McMillan, Joel Berry, of course, you can watch him on the network all day today, and Wes Durham, voice of the ACC. But for Tommy Ashley, Nia Satterfield, Brown, and Daniel Merrick, I'm Joey Powell. It's been Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
This is Anthony Elsie, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live.
Go ahead.
Will your